Right. Good morning, everyone. And here we are. Uh, I'm not sure which program. Oh, yeah. This is the 21st program, and not the 120th of our new series of a treatise on cosmic fire in depth. It's so deep that I was talking to Michael. I said, well, by the year 2050, that's the year of the great decision. We've had a great decision of the 6-degree initiates in the year 2001. So add another 49 years and gets to 2050. I think we'll be finished with the book then. Meanwhile, there'll be other things coming from Master Decay. So we'll just plow on the best we can. We have discussed, well, first of all, I just want to welcome you here. And Veronica, you've come in, and Annette and Catherine, Chris, and Joe, looks like here, and Leslie, and Lori. It's not so easy to make these names move the way they have it set up. Nellie is here, hi, and Risto, and Stephen Renneberg, and Vera, and Zenaidi. Okay, and then, Michael is giving me a hand in many respects. So we had worked with just a little fundamental regarding fire by friction, or what he's going to call primordial fire. And also last time we focused on solar fire. This time, the whole end of the book is all about electric fire, the last maybe 100 pages or so. But this is just a primary statement that about electric fire, or he calls it the logoic flame divine. And in this particular case, you can tell that he is working within the confines of our solar logos. Because if he were to be speaking of the cosmic logos, he would definitely say so. So, and of course, further, we have to think about our own planetary logos that represents the base of the spine chakra in the solar system of our solar logos. A very important planet we're evolving with, or as part of, and we will have a definite part to play in the advancement of our solar logos. So this kind of fire is called the logoic flame divine. This flame is the distinguishing mark of our logos, and it is that which differentiates him from all other logoi. It is his dominant characteristic and the sign of his place in cosmic evolution. Well, we have two terms, flame and fire, and generally I have found that the word flame is of greater import even than the word fire, or more fundamental, let us say. So we're considering fire as to be a derivative of flame. So, I'm asking myself, and we can ask each other and try to determine this one fine day. Is the ultimate cosmic flame different from electric fire? That is a question. Is the ultimate cosmic flame different from electric fire? Usually electric fire is considered to be the fire of will, but the flame seems more inclusive. So we have been saying, yes, that it is distinct. And here from the Secret Doctrine, we read, fire is the most perfect and unadulterated reflection in heaven as on earth of the one flame. So the one flame seems absolutely fundamental, and all three aspects of fire are reflections of or derivative from or of this one flame. You can ask yourself, well, is the flame absolute reality? And I think, again, the answer has to be no. Absolute reality is indescribable, and flame is derivative from it. So in this selection, this is point 3 that we've been looking at, it is suggested that we equate electric fire with the logoic flame divine. In the quotation, however, from the Secret Doctrine, flame is considered fundamental and superior to any form of life. Now, wait a second, yeah, we're looking at that. I just always wonder whether I have the correct screen up. I think so. Okay. So words, you know, they're not always used with exactitude. Even Master DK has the use of words, some of which are extremely exact, and he points that out. Others of which are used somewhat in general. So this question of fire and flame, there will be an exact use and then an approximate use. I think that in this particular case, what we're talking about is as flame, it's related to the monadic nature of our logos. Now we're going to be told, excuse me, something about the soul and personality nature, but never exactly about the monadic nature of our logos, though maybe we can hazard some kind of guess or intelligent speculation. So probably, you know, flame and fire, it's going to be difficult for us to separate the words exactly. Just, you know, it's the same way when you're dealing in astrology and you're dealing with, you're dealing with what's called here constellations and signs of the zodiac. Sometimes we find that they are used in a manner that is precisely differentiated, such as, you know, somewhere around page 611 or 12 or 13, he talks about constellations as galaxies of stars and signs as concentrated influences of those constellations. So he differentiates, but oftentimes, and maybe it's a method of blinding, I don't know, it could be, oftentimes we're dealing with an approximate use. So there seems to be also an overlap in the Tibetan's presentation of fire and flame, you know.
Do you want to leave your video on?
I'm going to turn it on and off occasionally. Do you see, by the way, do you see the text?
Yes, we do.
Good, okay. So I turn the video on and off. Yeah, but thank you, Michael. Now I'm sure of what happens there. Okay, so Master DK seems to be saying that the seat of any true identity for any being is in the monad. And I'll think about that for a minute because, one day you will be taking a long trip after the sixth initiation, and it will be on the basis of one of your monadic rays, either the one of them which is part of a sevenfold system, or one which is part of a threefold system, the higher of the monadic rays. And that will determine probably the way you descended in the first place, and it will determine the correct path of return if in your absolutely free choice you make the right decision, as at first the Buddha did not. Interesting. But we're given that free choice, and I believe it's determined by the ray of the monad, either one of the sevenfold possibilities or one of the threefold possibilities eventually. So at our stage of evolution, we don't usually consider the monad so much as the major differentiator of identity. We consider the soul, really. We can say the personality is the instrument of the soul, but our real identity is on the higher plane of mind, or our truer identity, and we call it the soul. Excuse me, I have a little morning voice here. But the soul ray is simply eventually to be seen as the sub-ray of one of the monadic rays, probably in the sevenfold system. Yeah, it's very interesting. I did a search, in the books about are there 7 monadic types or are there 3 monadic types? And it turns out that both are correct. There are 7 monadic types of one kind and 3 superior monadic types which connect with the logoic plane. So, but the monad itself, and I suppose I should really capitalize that word, monad, determines our unique place in the fixed design, in the greater design. So it would seem then that each logos has a distinguishing flame of a certain color, hue, intensity, even song, because, the old saying that, and there are people who can hear it, that flames sing. Okay, so there are certain characteristics of this distinguishing flame, according to which his place in the cosmic evolution can be determined. Well, now I think we're speaking of at this point, our particular solar logos. It's interesting with DK that when he means planetary logos, he usually says so. And when he means the solar logos, he oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes uses simply the word logos. So we would imagine that this is true of ourselves as well, as tiny little emanations of the great life which we also are. So maybe, we're a little hampered here, not knowing the monadic ray of our solar logos, whereas we are told quite a bit about his soul and personality ray, both of them being the second. But I think we, Well, he's manifesting, or it is manifesting through the color yellow. This may tell us something about the stage of development of our logos, but it also relates it to the fourth ray, the yellow ray. Gold is really a different color. When we say golden, we could say golden yellow, but a bright yellow is usually associated with the fourth ray, and it takes you to Mercury, a fourth ray soul planet. So one of the rays, monadic rays of our solar logos may well be the fourth ray. But if you think about its role within our local cosmic logos, that's a much, it's a constellation. And this logos is called sometimes by the name the 7 solar systems of which ours is one. The 7 solar systems of which ours is one. What we discover is that our solar logos plays the part of the heart center in that cosmic logos. There's a blind that goes on there, and sometimes we're told that our solar logos plays the part of the heart center in the one about whom naught may be said, or the unknown of page 293 in this book, Cosmic Fire. But I think that the scale is off there. I just think it's more likely to be the case that the 7 solar systems is also a kind of preliminary one about whom naught may be said. We really don't know much. And then there is one beyond it for whom solar systems, constellations rather, play the part of the chakras. Constellations play the part of the chakras in this being that we usually call the one about whom naught may be said. And I've shown you this on the map, and it's this being, as far as I've been able to determine, which includes the Great Bear and the Pleiades and other, it includes our particular solar system and probably our cosmic logos. DK cannot draw all this on one map. It's just not possible. It would have to be, just some incredibly huge map that would not be suitable for a book. So basically, he's condensed things in this particular chart, which is probably the largest chart for which he is responsible. There's another chart called Parabrahm, but it's done by theosophists and not by himself. Okay, now going back. I always have to remember to switch back. So my guess is that ultimately, our solar logos at this time is a 222, or maybe more practically a 422. One day, maybe at the end of this solar system, maybe a 222. And by that I mean monadic soul and personality. And in the next solar system, which is the 6th solar system, the 3rd major solar system, our solar logos will be a 2-2-1 with a first ray personality, second ray soul, and a second ray monad. Okay, now he says some interesting things here next. He says it must be remembered that the dominating ray, at this time, okay? Remember, we're not yet a sacred solar system. We are not yet, as Sirius is, a sacred solar system. That the dominating ray, the outstanding influence in our solar system at this time, is the great cosmic second ray of love wisdom, a dual ray, love and wisdom, just the way the Buddha and the Christ, the two Gemini brothers, as it were, work together, representing the Eastern and the Western hemisphere. The Buddha representing wisdom and the Christ representing love. So this is a dual ray, and that becomes significant as we think about the quality pouring through our solar system and hence through each one of us. So it combines two great cosmic principles or energies, love and wisdom. It is the ray which governs the personality of our solar logos. So he says it, definitely. Only where does he say it? He says it in esoteric psychology. So you have to do a search all over the place, and that's why this Alice Bailey CD-ROM, whatever its limitations might be, is such a marvelous instrument for us. It's probably sped us on our way 100 times faster. So anyway, it governs the personality of our solar logos, if such an expression may be used. And because it is dual, it indicates, now this is actually, a fairly obscure statement. I find it to be fairly obscure. Because it is dual, it indicates both his personality and soul rays, which in him are now so balanced and blended from the angle of humanity, that from the angle of humanity, they constitute the major ray, the one ray. So we're in a position where we're not really looking so much at dividing the dual ray, but as the union of the two aspects as one love-wisdom ray. This major ray determines both his quality and his purpose, and again, that may be a hint because probably the monadic ray is also the same. Now that's not going to be the case, I think, with a human being, not yet. Maybe one day we become in group form one of these higher beings, then we can understand more about it at that time. So at this time he has a purpose and he has a quality, and it is a balanced and blended love wisdom quality. Let's see. Yeah, and this being the fifth solar system that we're in now, or the second major solar system, is very much given to this second ray. Now, in the previous major solar system, which was the fourth in the line of solar systems, the personality ray was probably the third. That was his green system. We are now in his blue system, and eventually, trillions of years from now, if the chronology is to be believed, which Blavatsky says it should be, we will enter the red solar system. And then somehow there will be 7 solar systems because we count all the 6 as one. So what the implications are there, still for people like ourselves need to be discovered, because there are only 6 solar systems and yet somehow a 7th by combining all the 6 as one. So this is from Psychology 1, page 334. Now, his purpose in the next solar system will be much more will-oriented. There is speculation, as I was saying, that the monadic ray of our solar logos, in terms of his lesser monadic ray, may be the fourth, since our logos is considered to be a logos of the fourth order. But that, doesn't necessarily mean that the order number corresponds to the ray number. It may simply have to do with the stage of development that our solar logos finds himself to be in. And remember, a non-sacred solar logos, just as we live, even though, this logos is far, far beyond the development of any planetary logos, still considered in the range of solar logoi non-sacred, where obviously great logoi like Betelgeuse and the belt of Orion, they are sacred solar logoi. As a matter of fact, even beyond, they may be synthesizing solar logoi just the way we have synthesizing planets. But, these are the kinds of things that we can only speculate upon just to get a general picture. The masters themselves would have a long way to go to really understand completely what's going on with respect to those cosmic systems. So anyway, ours is a logos of the fourth order, but does order number correspond to ray number? And I would say probably not. But our logos is the heart center, within one of the ones about whom naught may be said. And the heart chakra is the fourth chakra, isn't it? If you count from below or count from above, the major chakras, the heart center is always the fourth. So you're going to have the head center, the ajna, the throat, and number 4, the heart. Or you will have the base of the spine, the sacral center, the solar plexus center, and then the heart. It's 4, it's right in the middle. And maybe that's one of the reasons, if I can put it, maybe that is why our solar logos is so associated with Buddhi. What's very interesting is we all have a destination, maybe one of the local major constellations is our final destination before we reach the Pleiades, when we begin to travel, as it were, as a monad on the way of higher evolution. And what's interesting is if you happen to be on the path of the solar logoi, it will take you not to the cosmic astral plane, not to the cosmic mental plane. It is the one path about which we know, because there are 2 others that we don't know anything about, that will take you to the cosmic Buddhic plane. So destination, cosmic Buddhic plane. That is the destination if you are on that path that is to become a solar logos. Now, there are a lot of complexities about these paths, and we will discuss them, but DK would not have given us this information if it was not important, at least conceptually. And, to give people a kind of incentive, which is much, much greater and more interesting and more inspiring than the usual childish visions or images of what heaven is. Heaven is a generic term, and there are many, many heavens. Usually they always represent a higher plane. So when we can see where these paths begin to lead out towards great constellations and eventually towards our major cluster, the Pleiades, which probably is what we might call the 1,000-petaled lotus of the one about whom naught may be said, our one about whom naught may be said, we realize what a tremendous journey lies ahead of us and how great the interest. And this gives us a kind of inspiration not to get bogged down and to and an inspiration to look very positively at the possibilities that are offered in this universe. So let us then be alert to the thought that love wisdom is a dual ray, and one or the other factor may apply to the personality and the soul of the solar logos. We don't know which, and maybe the blending of the two now applies to both. In other words, the personality of the solar logos may have a love emphasis and his soul a wisdom emphasis, or the other way around, and or I'll put it like this, or they both may have a blended love wisdom emphasis. And that is not, I have two keyboards here in front of me, and some of them produce different characters that I want. Okay, so that gives us a little bit of an idea, you know, what is electric fire really? Is it absolutely cosmic electric fire? Well, sometimes the highest aspect of fire, even from our solar logos, who demonstrates the neutral fire, the solar fire, may be considered electric fire. So there are many triplicities involved. Like you might say, there's an electric, solar, and fire by friction aspect of fire connected with the third aspect of divinity. 3, similarly, connected with the solar fire of our solar logos, and 3, similarly, as subdivisions of the electric fire of our solar logos. And where will electric fire come from? Way, way up there on the map, on that big map on page 344. So basically, if I try to locate the real source of electric fire, it would be up on this level. But that does not necessarily mean that the electric fire that we are dealing with is this kind of fire. This may be the origin, but in terms of the power of it and the source of it, it would not be correct. It would just be what lies behind the kind of electric fire that we deal with, whether it's in the fire by friction range or in the solar fire range. As far as the monadic fire and its threefold division, well, we have some lives lying ahead of us before we can determine that. All right, going on. So the threefold fire, this threefold fire may be expressed in ray terms as follows. This is what the Tibetan says. And then follows some, wow, some very big footnotes that are written in a different style, but I'll read them and you can, get the impression of them. We cannot ignore the footnotes that are supplied here, because sometimes they provide some very important associated information. So first, we have in ray terms, the animating fires of the solar system. They make things move, which are the fires of the primordial ray. Now, that's not the same as primary ray, not really. Primordial, of active intelligent matter. They are the fires of active intelligent matter, primordial ray. Now, that's the third ray, of course. These constitute the energy of Brahma. Now, when you divide a cosmic plane into Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, Brahma rules the lower 5 planes. See it's obvious, but it's always better to see. Brahma rules, from the cosmic perspective, these 5 lower planes: atmic, cosmic, buddhic, cosmic mental, cosmic astral, and cosmic physical. Vishnu, or Surya, rules the 2nd plane down, 6th plane up. These cosmic planes. They are really subplanes, actually, of supercosmic logos. And then Shiva, this cosmic Shiva, rules the very highest level. Now, we can't even reach the highest level on the cosmic physical plane, so you can only imagine what kind of development is required to be associated with these very high planes. Basically, solar logoi are just little students compared to the lives that are found on these very highest levels. So keep everything in proportion as much as possible. Let's see here. The fires of the primordial ray of active intelligent matter. These constitute the energy of Brahma, the 3rd aspect of the Logos. Next are to be found the fires of the divine ray of love wisdom, the ray of intelligent love, which constitutes the energy of the Vishnu aspect, the 2nd aspect, logoic. Now, I just want to say a little word about spiritual and divine. This is one of those cases where DK is switching his terminology. Usually, he tells us there is a distinction between that which is spiritual and that which is divine. And he associates spirituality with the higher mental plane, the Buddhic plane, and the Atmic plane, the spiritual triad. And he associates divinity, he uses the word divine when it has to do with the highest 2 planes where the monadic presence can be found, namely the monadic plane and the logoic plane. And that is a definite distinction that he makes. But here, he's not doing it that way. Here he's saying that the fires of love wisdom are divine. The fires of the divine ray of love wisdom, the ray of intelligent love. just as the primordial ray involved active intelligent matter or intelligent activity. So the ray of intelligent love he calls the divine ray in this context, and this constitutes the energy of the Vishnu aspect, the second aspect, logoic. Now Vishnu has an equivalent term, and this term is like the sun, and it's Surya. So Vishnu and Surya are equivalent. There is an ancient book, apparently written by an Atlantean giant who was an expert in astrology. He was called Surya Maya, something like that. I guess you can analyze those words. And he wrote a book called the Surya Siddhanta, which has somehow survived all the way down and in the literature of India. So there's something about what he said which is still available. So the word primordial in this context, it means foundational. It's not the same thing as, it's not the same thing as primary. The third ray is often called the ray of active intelligence, and here it's called active intelligent matter. The relation of the third ray to matter must always be remembered. It is also closely related to mind. So and then I elaborated on the idea of divine versus spiritual. We don't have the word spiritual here, we have simply primordial and divine. I don't know what he would call the monadic ray or rays. I don't know by what name. I would call it divine based on what he said elsewhere. So let's remember those words in this introduction to Cosmic Fire of primordial and divine. Now, we are in the system of the divine ray right now. However, there is a kind of a hangover from primordial days, and I'll make an analogy here. Just the way the life and tendencies of the moon chain are still with us in the earth chain because they have been, as it were, transported and cause a lot of trouble, incidentally, to the fourth or earth chain. They are part of a dual system. Our little earth chain seems to have two tendencies operative simultaneously. The conclusion of moon chain evolution and education, and the evolution and education which belongs appropriately to the earth chain. Now it's the same analogically with the previous solar system and the present solar system. Not all was well, we are told, in the previous solar system. Maybe it was worse, considering the relation of the moon chain to the earth chain, but not all went smoothly in the previous solar system. There were rebellions there with consequences that we have in our present solar system. So, in this fifth incarnation of our solar logos, he has to deal with leftovers, unfinished business, karma from the previous solar system. And we have that issue right now operating with such masters as Moria, Master Jesus, maybe Master R, probably Master Hilarion. Those particular masters, I have reason to believe, were individualized in the previous solar system and journeyed to this solar system carrying a lot of karma, which they are expiating here as masters. And so the whole so-called relationship between the nomads, which some identify with the Jewish group, and the residents of this solar system, the second major or fifth in a line of systems, it's a big karmic issue. And it centers around the Middle East problem and what he's, written about. He calls it the Jewish problem, but it really has to do with the karma of the previous solar system. So anyway, we've got plenty of hangover, as it were, karmic hangover in our solar system, and we have not yet overcome the tendencies of the primordial ray, the third, which must give way to a more thorough and clear and clean expression of the second ray in this second solar system. And that's one of the big jobs that's happening right now in our solar system, and I think very much upon our planet. Now, here is a footnote. Okay. And let's see if it brings to our attention anything of value, but from a different perspective. So we're dealing with Vishnu, Shiva, Brahma, or in order, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Shiva, Vishnu, Brahma. Footnote, that whereinto all enter, Vishanti, is Vishnu. So you could meditate just on that. The great absorbent second ray, Vishnu. And I talked to you in one of the other classes about the 7 major mantra, the naught is but me mantram, connected with the second ray. But it absorbs everything. And the DK says, second ray people have to be careful because they are such absorbers, whereas first ray types can deflect. That whereinto all enter, Vishanti, is Vishnu. Now, this is expressed in very different ways. He who covers up, envelops, surrounds, undertakes all, suggesting activity, is Brahma. So it's an externality compared to Vishnu. Brahma is relatively an external God. Now, remember that when we say Brahman or Brahman with an N, we mean the absolute reality. When we say Brahma without an N, we mean the third aspect of divinity. Like, for instance, if you look at a peach, a fruit, the skin is Brahma, the pulp, the edible pulp is Vishnu, and the seed is Shiva. It's a threefold demonstration of the Trinity or the Hindu Trimurti. So, on the outer level, which means the lower 5 subplanes that we were just talking about, Brahma rules. He who sleeps, Shite or Sheti, I'm not sure how we would pronounce that, in everything is Shiva. You know, it sounds a lot like the power of the Kundalini, or at least a great brilliant revelation which is waiting for the other two aspects to be able to withstand its presence. Shiva sleeps, lies hidden in all and everything as the nexus, the bond, where all things come together. And this is the nature of desire. Now, desire and will, we know, are very closely related. And when you do this leapfrog thing, you discover that higher desire is known on a lower level as will. And when we have the higher will on a higher level, it works out as desire. So there's a constant interchange between desire and will. Vrenite signifies the environment, the covering with an envelope, the demarcation of the limiting bounds or the periphery, and so the formation or creation of all forms. And this is action presided over by Brahma. So, you know, if you say, what are people doing with their evolution? Most of them are still in the Brahmic phase of evolution, meaning they're tending to their personality and its development. They're not yet stepping into the hall of wisdom, which brings on the first initiation and the presence of Vishnu Surya, as translated down onto the higher mental plane. Now, Vishanti Sarvani indicates that all things enter into it. Basically, he's elaborating what he just said above. And it into all in it and it in all. It reminds one of the Christ speaking about identification and talking to the Father, that they may be in me and I in them, even as you are in me and I in you. You know, I paraphrase, but you've heard it, the 17th chapter of John, which DK tells us is maybe our best example of identification described. So we have Vrenite connected with Brahma. We have Vishanti Sarvani connected with Vishnu. All things enter into it, and it into all, and such is the self connected with cognition and Vishnu. The consciousness aspect is what he's talking about here. And Vishnu Surya is the consciousness aspect. And then finally, the summation or totality of these is Mahavishnu, and Mahavishnu is Shiva. So we've had here, you know, what we can call a picturesque depiction of the three persons of the Hindu Trimurti, or the three persons of the Christian Trinity, the Western Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, Shiva, Vishnu, Surya, Brahma. Mahavishnu, he says in this note, the overlord of all this world system, you know, operating as it were from the logoic plane of our cosmic physical plane. Mahavishnu, the overlord of all this world system, is described as Ishvara, Sometimes that means the planetary logos. White-colored, four-armed, adorned with the conch, the discus, the mace, the lotus, the forest wreath, and the Kanstubha gem, shining vestured in blue and yellow, endless and imperishable in form, attribute-less, yet ensouling and underlying all attributes. Well, right there is a really big study. And here he's going to say maybe just a little bit about it. Not that we can get into it because it would be, for us, it would take a long time. So we can't be led off, but we can at least see some of the relations. As far as attribute-less, I think that is a difficult idea because there is only one whatever that is attribute-less. Even the entire universal logos has attributes taken from absolute infinitude in the super cosmic state. So the absolute is attribute-less. That's it, as far as I can understand. But maybe the author here, which is not DK, by the way, the author sees attribute-less in a different way. So as long as we're at it, this is a huge footnote, you know, and shows you, it's from the Pranavavada, and it gives you a certain number of pages. Here, the epithet Ishvara indicates the rule. Well, that is the logos, whatever logos it may be, himself. Usually it's our planetary logos, but maybe from a solar logoic point of view, it can be also understood. The four arms, the four activities of cognition, etc. The white resplendence is the illumination of all things. The shankha, conch or shell, indicates all sound. So we have, you know, all light, all sound found within whatever plane we're working on, probably the cosmic physical. And the chakra, wheel or discus, all time, as time is cyclic. There being a connection between the two. Gada, the whirling mace, which it looks like will connect with both sound and time. Okay. No. I see, excuse me. There's a semicolon there. Okay. There being a connection between the two, sound and light. Okay. Gada, or the whirling mace, is the spiral method of the procession of the world. In other words, spiral cyclic activity, which is evolutionary activity. And the lotus flower is the whole of that procession. So consciousness is developed, and its symbol is the whirling mace, which is spiral cyclic action. The lotus is the result of it all, and the unfoldment of consciousness, we are told by DK, has its best image in the lotus flower. The Vanamala, the wreath of forest flowers, indicates the stringing together of all things, you know, like the mala, the beads that you have 108 of, that you may pronounce your deific name in connection. It's kind of like a Hindu rosary, helps you keep count, but 108 is very important because 108 tells you about the 104 Kumaras plus Sanat Kumara, plus the 3 esoteric Kumaras, 108. And that figure probably plays into the numerology of the solar logos as well. So the Vanamala, the wreath of forest flowers, indicates the stringing together of all things into unity and necessity. Another way of saying this is that everything is related to everything else and reciprocally. The Nila Pitambara, blue and yellow vestures, are darkness and light. And sometimes when I think about Master DK, I think that his colors are very much the blue and the yellow. The Kastubha jewel indicates inseparable connection with all, and we might say the synthesizing power in man of the jewel in the lotus is a lesser analog of this great jewel. Nirguna, attributeless, shows the presence of the nature of negation, while saguna, attribute-full, implies possession of name and form. But name and form are like the 2 lower points of the 5-pointed star. And we have, for the 3 higher points of that star, Sat, Chit, and Ananda, or Satchitananda, Swami Satchitananda, he took the name of the 3 higher points, and Nama Rupa, name and form, Nama Rupa, imply the lower 2 points of the 5-pointed star. So basically, we're talking about the absence of lower attributes and not necessarily the absence of attribute altogether, because Sat, Chit, and Ananda seem to remain. The world process, as embodied in our world system, is the result of the ideation of Mahavishnu, who is Shiva, and just the way Shambhala holds all of the archetypes which have to be worked out in connection with the earth scheme, so Mahavishnu, Shiva, with respect to our solar system, provides the great archetypes that are worked out in the world process. Now, look, I've only touched the surface here, and it's kind of elaboration on the basis of what comes to me when I think of these things. But you can see how important it is for us to be able to study the footnotes, and footnote number 6 is an extraordinary study. We'll get to it. And it has to do with all the cycles of time under which we are operating. So we have to really, I'm just about finished here. We have to really respect the tradition which can produce such thought. Of course, remember that India has a very powerful 4th ray, and so rather than in a strictly scientific manner, being presented in a strictly scientific, descriptive manner, there's going to be a lot of symbolism, and it will take us to the Buddhic plane and into the intuition. And I think Dr. Guy Pettit, he was a friend and early student in the university work, associate. I think we have that Anmakara, the Pranava Vada, because he did a lot of work organizing all that and making it available to students such as ourselves. So there will be maybe a similar description of Brahma and Vishnu, both available. Well, I think I'm not going to go any further right now. I think that's enough. And I'll bring this down. You see why I said that the year 2050 will be significant, as we'll finally reach the end of the book. But meanwhile, we simply go forward. Okay, and this is the place. So this will be the end of program 2117. And the beginning of 2218. It's all because I did 3 of these simply with self-talk. So this came in on the 10th, and we're still on page 38. There's so much foundation here, and we move to number 17, and we'll begin, right here on page 38 and 39, and we'll talk about the fires of the cosmic mental plane. Now, we have cosmic Agni, cosmic Indra, cosmic, I forget what is the atmic level. It's kind of aether or ether. Cosmic Brahma is what it is, the Brahmic plane and everything under it. Then cosmic Vishnu, Surya, and finally cosmic Shiva. Now that map takes us so far beyond what we can really comprehend. All we can do is literally to map it, to say, okay, these are the structures into which all life on Earth and Earth itself, and into which our solar logos, these are the structures into which those beings are growing. So it makes our solar logos look very small indeed, the way that map is presented from 344 of a treatise on cosmic fire. So next time we'll get a bit more into the great Deva, Mahadeva, and DK summarizes right here all of the really important cycles leading to the great number, which is the duration of a solar system, 311 trillion 40 billion years. And we'll try to maybe at least get into that. And remember that while some teachers say that these figures are too big, from another perspective, Blavatsky says these figures are real, they are accurate, and we should pay attention to them. So that's coming right up, and I think we'll at least be able to begin that next time. That'll come under the ray of intelligent activity, and then there will be the ray of intelligent love, probably another time, and then the ray of intelligent will. So I'm pulling together a lot of information here as a foundation for our cosmic fire studies. And, hopefully we can persist with this, and we can build up a reservoir of thought that will contribute to the development in our consciousness of pure reason, a Mercurian aspect of the intuition, more so than a Neptunian or Jupiterian aspect. Those two are also associated with the intuition, but pure reason is Mercurian, I believe, and DK as the messenger, as working with Gemini people, as himself probably strongly Geminian, will be related, I think, to that method of presentation. Okay. So, oh, look at all that. It's really, going to be interesting. But at least we have a place that we can start from. And that's English, and this is Finnish, and this is the dividing line. Okay. Okay, friends. Now, do you have any thoughts or questions that you would like to bring up at this point? Obviously, there's so much factual and symbolic material here that, we always run the danger of overload if we, with the academic material, go more than 1 hour. And even so, we can be overloaded in one sentence. It's a different way of studying. And basically, what we learn is that cosmic fire, the treatise on cosmic fire, turns out to be the source book of almost everything else that he wrote after that. There are the magical stanzas. There are the symbols of esoteric psychology. There are the factors that have to do with astrology to be found here. Let's just say that this is the, what does he call it? The extension of the secret doctrine, the psychological extension or psychological interpretation of the secret doctrine. That's the book we're in right now, and we'll continue to move forward with. Okay, your thoughts or your questions? If there are any, and over here, I think in the chat, Michael has some links that everybody will need if you want to join us for the glamour dissipation and for identify as being and that kind of thing. You'll need these links, and for the science of triangles and so forth. So you can copy that. Okay, do you have any thoughts that you would like to bring forward? Just raise your hand. Michael will catch you, or you can write something in the chat box. Mm-hmm.
Everyone is pondering on this.
Hey, look, DK says that this is a book for the initiate consciousness. Okay, and by that I suppose he means from the third initiation onward. However, the same might be said of the 14 rules in the rays and the initiations, because it really begins at the third of the group initiations, the first real initiation, the third degree that a group takes. However, if we could not find an application for these two books at the level of consciousness where we find ourselves, they would be quite useless to us. And fortunately, I think we can transform them into a more assimilable understanding for groups that are not initiate groups. And it takes quite a bit to be a third degree initiate group. I think we're doing well if we can be a first degree initiate group. So we can benefit even though the books are difficult. And as you're listening along or maybe taking notes, maybe one thing out of all the many things will strike you. And that one thing can be important to you. That's how occult hints are derived these days. DK says, I give you a mass of material, he says. Now, what stands out to you as important? That's your hint. It's no longer the teacher saying, as in the old days, I give you this hint. Now go away and figure it out, It's more independent. So when we're reading through the mass of material, bang, something may impress us as important. And that can be a key to a door that we have not yet unlocked. Anything you would like to say or ask? And I always open this up as well to any question about occultism, because everything is interrelated. And with a book like Cosmic Fire, there's probably no subject in occultism that one cannot reach if one knows the right path. So that can be more general questions as well. And silence reigned. Okay, let's see.
But it is occult silence.
Occult silence. By the way, if you want to read about occult silence, read the 11th rule, because in the preliminary to the rule itself, he deals with 4 types of eliminations that have to occur. And one of them has to do with speech and thought and occult silence. So I think you'll find it most interesting. It has a lot more to do with organizing your thoughts into categories so that they can be used properly in the right context at the right time and not be mixed inappropriately. It's a bit of a different, it doesn't mean just keeping your mouth shut, DK says that our students, he says of his students, our students would be a lot better off if they talked more about the right things. And it was kind of a joke. He says, so many of our students seem to think that in order to take initiation, you must not talk. I think he would be in trouble himself, wouldn't he, with those 24 volumes that he has either written or inspired. Okay. And. Okay, and here's a question from Chris. If our sun is a star in a constellation of a great being, do we know what the other stars are? Yes, I'll give you, Nicholas Nilen and I worked on this, and we have some speculations. You know about Nicholas, he's a very good astrologer, and he lives in Sweden, very progressive. So I'll name what I think are some of them, maybe not all of them. So Alpha and Beta Centauri, Alpha and Beta of the Centaur, maybe having to do with the sacral center. Procyon, having to do with the ajna center. The possibility of Sirius being, remember, Sirius is still a dwarf star, however much more powerful it may be than our sun. And it can be associated by some thinkers with the ajna and by some thinkers with the crown chakra. Then there is Altair in the eagle. And let's see, Vega. Vega seems to be a very important star towards which our entire solar system is directed. There's also another star called Fomalo, F-O-M-A-L-O-T or something like that. I'm not sure of the pronunciation, but Fomalo, it's one of the royal stars. Not Aldebaran, not Regulus, not Antares. They're just supergiants and they're just too big and they belong to other systems. So the sun as the heart, Fomalo maybe as the solar plexus, Alpha and Beta Centauri, maybe, the sacral center, the star in the eagle, Aquila, maybe the base of the spine. This has to be speculative at this point. Procyon almost certainly, with its eagerness and representing the aspirant, the ajna center, our sun, certainly the heart center. And when it comes to Sirius and Vega, well, Vega is interesting because it rules magical incantation and words. So there's a possibility of its association with the throat center of this cosmic logos. And maybe Sirius, I tend to think of it that way at the moment, as the brightest of all of these associated stars, none of which is a giant or supergiant, connected with the crown center. But Sirius also, interestingly, has ajna center meanings because of its fifth ray and because it is a kind of cosmic Christ. It has a heart center meaning as well. So those are the ones about which discussion has occurred. And obviously one has to kind of look at the lore connected with each star and see what is most appropriate. So those, turn to page 50 of Esoteric Astrology. And I'll just try to kind of do that right now. I go to Esoteric Astrology and I go to page 50, and what you'll see there.
And show your screen. Change your screen.
That would be a good idea. I'm on my way to do that. We have certain stars, and it looks like Sirius may do double duty here. It is, for our solar system, an amazing initiatory star. We might say that Sirius is the initiator of our solar logos. And it has reached the cosmic mental plane in terms of its polarization, which is not the case with our solar logos, being more a heart center. But right below here, we have something called the 7 solar systems. and it relates to magnetic energy. And this particular 7 solar systems, of which ours is one, are the chakras of our local cosmic logos, in which our sun is included as a heart center, and in which there is an association with Taurus, Mars, and Scorpio. Now, it just flashed on me that, remember, well, if you were at the Science of Triangles work, we looked at a triangle which was Sirius, Scorpio, Mars. And what I'm seeing here is kind of a justification to include Sirius in the 7 solar systems. First of all, Scorpio and Mars are respectively a constellation and a planet, which are associated with the 7 solar systems. And we're questioning about Sirius and its role. And Taurus is associated with the Ajna center. It's ruled by Venus preliminarily, and also the head center is ruled by Vulcan. Vulcan is a head center. Venus is an Ajna center. Turn to page 517 in this book, I'll show you. So there's a great light connected with Taurus. And it is a light that is akin to the luminosity of the 5th ray, the brightest of the ray lords. So there's a lot here to suggest the presence of Sirius as the main star among the 7 solar systems. And first of all, it's so close to our Earth. It's only 8 light years away. DK calls it, of course, a tremendous distance, and it is in terms of any kind of normal, human travel. We're not yet into whatever it's called, warp speed or hyperspace. We're not into any of those things. But maybe the fact that we can conceive them tells us that one day we'll be able to travel between stars, but not in the way we presently conceive. So the star Sirius is very connected with our solar logos and is the initiator of our solar logos. Now, when I look at this local cosmic logos, that's what this one is when we're dealing with magnetic energy, I think of a solar plexus or a sacral center. There are ways in which Taurus, Scorpio can be definitely solar plexus, because the whole principle of desire is focused in Taurus, Scorpio, and in Mars, which rules for average man the solar plexus. But the sacral center is also involved with Taurus, Scorpio, and Mars is one of the rulers of the sacral center. I tend to, I haven't worked this out entirely, but I tend to think of these 7 solar systems and their magnetic energy as having more to do with the solar plexus of the great being we call the one about whom naught may be said. And this being, the 7 solar systems, is a cosmic logos, which serves as a chakra within a super cosmic logos, the one about whom. And then our sun is simply a solar logos, serving as a chakra within a cosmic logos. And the stars that I named have the probability of being chakras within that 7-fold cosmic logoic system. So I think that gives a little background. And also, you know, there are other associations here that have to do with the different hierarchies on the cosmic astral plane and so forth. But, you know, from a practical perspective, it's just a mental game almost to put all these things together, because they cannot mean anything personal to us yet. The planets are what we have to deal with. And the esoteric rulers are what we have to deal with. And eventually the hierarchical planets are what we have to deal with. That's closer to home. And we can deal also with the signs of the zodiac which affect our planet. It's not even the constellations which are the source of energy of those signs that we are dealing with. We're dealing with the sign. The sign is the concentrated influences of the constellations. It's nice to know about the constellations, but the constellations are actually 12 petals in the heart, 12 petals in the heart, in the head center of the one about whom naught may be said. So the supercosmic logos takes the whole zodiac of constellations, ours, and makes of it a major 12-petaled center in the middle of the great head center. So these are, you know, the higher kinds of correspondences to our own etheric anatomy. Okay, Chris, so I hope that gives something there that can be useful, at least a start, you know, a start. Okay. All right, friends, then if there's nothing further on occultism or on this subject, now remember, as I say, you can deal with anything in occultism when we have these question and answer sessions. It's nice when there is something that jumped off the page for you in what we read, but it's not absolutely necessary. But you do recognize, don't you, from the Pranavavada, you recognize that fourth ray symbolic language, don't you? And different countries and their spiritual traditions have different ways of presenting the facts, you know, reality. And India, with so much fourth ray, as DK says, a battlefield down the ages. That's the fourth ray of war and peace. India has all of this very colorful presentation, symbolic, colorful presentation.
So did you see what Anna has written?
No. I will. Do you want to say what it is, Michael?
It said that Sirius is cosmic ajna and Pleiades cosmic throat centers.
There's different ways of looking at that. Of course, probably DK didn't say that, but there are some astrological speculators that have likened these two, and I have been one of them, actually. That the cosmic ajna, before you came back on, we discussed Sirius as the cosmic ajna, possibly. But the Pleiades are much too big to be the cosmic throat center. Maybe the 7 stars within them can be related to cosmic throat, and the little bear to cosmic ajna, and the great bear definitely, he tells us, to the 7 centers within the head of this great supercosmic being. My latest speculation on the Pleiades is they I don't know how many have been discovered so far, 800, 900 something, that it stands for the thousand-petaled lotus in the supercosmic logos that we call the one about whom naught may be said. Otherwise, it would be totally, as a cluster, it would be totally out of scale with the other asterisms, with the other relatively smaller constellations. So it's kind of the hub of the whole wheel, really. What we have in the secret doctrine, and maybe hinted at by DK, is that our 7 solar systems, our particular cosmic logos, revolves around the Pleiades. Now, is that the case with other of these great constellations, like Orion, like the Little Bear, like the Great Bear even? Yeah, our particular cosmic logos, yes, and some other constellations which serve as chakras within the one about whom naught may be said. I did a lot of discussion about this with the astrologer Stephen Pugh, and he has some very intriguing ideas, and he's been working on it a long time. Some of our ideas differ, and based on some astronomical factors, but he's done a lot of really good work on that, and I think he sees Sirius as a kind of cosmic agenda center within our local cosmic logos, but has not identified that star which stands for the head center. Sirius is definitely the strongest of the associated stars that are near our sun Sol, S-O-L, or Helios, we can call our solar logos, and would have a preeminent place. I'm sorry, a little bit, yeah, okay. So there are different ways of looking at this, and they must remain speculative, as there is no certainty. But remind yourself of the scale issue when dealing with a cluster of almost 1,000 stars in relation to the Pleiades. It's of an entirely different order, even though the major 7 stars of the Pleiades, at least major from our perspective, could be associated with the third aspect of divinity. When we look at the Pleiades, we can find that it is the governing cluster of our local system, the one about whom naught may be said. It reflects cosmic Buddhi, as a careful reading of page 1162 in Cosmic Fire will show, and it definitely has so much to do with intelligence that we have to connect it with the third aspect of divinity. So the 1, 2, and the 3 are all there with respect to the Pleiades. Now, what is the monadic ray of that great group? I don't know. I suspect it is 3 or 1, with the soul ray being 2. And the Pleiades are also associated with the solar angels. In an obscure reference, you would think that Sirius is the only star connected with the solar angels, but no, it's not true. The Pleiades are also connected with the demonstration of the solar angels. So I think you see the scale thing that that makes me think twice about ranking the Pleiades in their immensity simply with one of the chakras, unless it's the 1,000-petaled lotus, and then I can see it happening. Okay, it looks like Stephen Renneberg has something to say here. Michael, can you?
And Stephen, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, Michael. I'm trying.
Hi, Stephen. Haven't heard your voice in a while. Nice to hear you.
I've given over the last few months. I've been studying TCF pretty closely, and I've been giving a lot of thought to the Tibetan's references to atoms within the whole. And one of the things that I think about is that when he talks about a lesser, circling or orbiting another, I'm not convinced he's talking about geometric relationships or actual orbits. I think he's talking about polarity. Because, I mean, from an astronomical point of view, the sun doesn't orbit the Pleiades, but the relationship, it goes to what is the nature of a great life and all of the lesser lives that are the atoms within that life. And I've given a lot of thought to the individualities of the lesser lives forming a greater unity. It's like even bring it down to the level of hierarchy, where the masters are individualities, but the hierarchy itself is a whole. Master M says, we often fear the loss of individuality, but we don't truly know individuality till we are part of the whole. And I think that I would just caution the idea that he's talking about orbit, because I think it's about the positive and negative polarities between the greater entity and the lesser atoms that compose that entity, if that makes any sense. We could talk about this at great length, but I think it's more about the evolution of the atomic level collectively to the whole. If that makes any sense, I don't know. Anyway,
Well, actually, this point of view, yes, has been put forward, and there are astronomers who do not see how these various systems, solar systems, even though they are occultly related to each other, can follow a 250,000 year cycle around the Pleiades. At least according to science as they see it, it can't happen. And so something more akin to what you are discussing has been advanced. What I would do here, Stephen, is get, I think of all of our group, the person who studied a lot of astronomy is Nicholas Nelen. And I think it would be good to get his impression about this cycle. Now, when we're dealing with a 25,000 year cycle, it's really closer to 26, we're dealing with the gyration of our Earth axis as it is presently inclined in one complete gyration. It accounts for a Platonic year, and it accounts for the precession of the equinoxes in the smaller sense. Now, he jumps right from that period of 25,000 years, roughly, just in the same way that he gives us 2,500 years for an equinoctial precessional age, which is not exactly the case, but it's the rounded off figure, just the way 25,000 is the rounded off figure, because they're never going to give us the real figures, and he oftentimes says he won't. Then he goes straight to the 250,000 year cycle. In other words, he has taken two geometrically aligned cycles, namely an equinoctial age and also a great period of a Platonic year, which is, as I say, closer to 26,000. he's taken those two geometrical movements and assigned them a period of years. And then straight from that, he goes to the Pleiadian cycle in regard to the 7 solar systems. So, you know, you'd have to say, well, he's dealing with geometry in the beginning, and then he suddenly stops doing that and goes into a different type of interpretation. So I would say that the jury is still out on this matter, but that what you're suggesting is really something to be researched. Of course, you know, we can't help but be vague about it at the moment, because he says we don't even have the mathematics that allows us to speak about the rotation, not the revolution, but the rotation of our own sun. He says it involves a mathematics that is way beyond us, and basically it's not even a feature in modern scientific discussion. So when you're, you know, dealing with this kind of polarity thing that you're talking about, I'm sure the mathematics is way, way beyond us, but I think it is discoverable. But from a practical point of view, if we imagine a geometrical rotation, we will imagine the 7 solar systems themselves going through 10 or 12 distinct energetic phases along the way. So in other words, just the way in a Platonic year, we have 12 different equinoctial ages, so whatever this revolution is, whether it's as you are suggesting or whether it's more geometrical, there will be changes of energy along the way that will affect the entire cosmic logos and will therefore affect our solar logos as a heart center. And I would suggest that thinking about those ages would be an important line of inquiry, just the way what you are suggesting is an important line of inquiry. That's really all I can say about it. I would say, in my mind, the jury is still out, you know, and I'd be interested to see what Nicholas thinks about this, and we might be able to get a little conversation going and then bring it to the larger group and have the different points of view presented. But thanks for that thought. And it is, as I say, it's something that I've heard before, not exactly the way you said it, but the fact that it is not a geometrical measure.
I do agree the precession of the equinoxes, that cycle I think is absolutely clear. But for me, when I look at that, I mean, astronomically, I have no issue with it. When I look at it, I think the key word you said is the cyclic effect of it, as it moves through the various signs and how they reflect the various energies that come through us. And when I say polarity, I am talking about vast timescales of evolution. I think it is cyclical.
Yeah.
But it's just, for me, it's not saying there's not a relationship there. It's looking at it more in terms, not of the dense physical, but of the polarity between the lives, the lesser lives and the greater lives, and the cyclic process that they are going through over long time spans.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying there's not a relationship. I've got a feeling it's a more occult interpretation than simply a physical geometry. But of
course, yeah, I do understand, and the physical relationship, of course, would have its occultism. Now, it seems to me that speculation along this line, modern speculation, is quite new, and so there should be a kind of alignment between our sun and other points in space which should reveal to us whether this is a geometrical process. I don't know enough astronomy to be able to do that, but maybe, you know, that could be done, because obviously if the sun and other stars are moving around the Pleiades, there are going to be different stellar lines of sight created. And we should be able to identify that. We don't have anything that, we have something that maybe tells us about our own solar system in relation to a local cosmos. We have that, and we can speculate upon that, you know, based upon mathematics. But this other type of this other type of visual alignment should be there as well. And if the sun is moving around the Pleiades, well, I guess it depends about how the Pleiades are moving as well. But we should be able to see some kind of stellar alignments which tell us whether that is true or not. Anyway, there is occultism in it, and there are cycles in it, and there are changes of energy in it. And as students of occultism, that has to be for us the most important thing. The changes of energy, how they affect the solar system, how they affect the Earth, how they affect us. So from that point of view, I think it's an important issue. Anyway, thanks for bringing up that that problem. And then we can investigate as we go. We'll try to get something going here with some people who have pretty strong astronomy within their. Nicholas is one who will be able to help on this matter, I think. So thanks, Stephen.
All the best.
Yeah, you bet. Okay, well, friends, that's going to be it then, I think. Unless there's something else, I think that's enough. And we'll go further. Let's try always to end with the great invocation, end or beginning, you know, because it takes us right back to our major task. All of these speculations, well, they tell us something about the magnificent system in which we are pursuing our evolution. And they give us some esoteric underpinnings which can break the illusions that we seem as a race to be so preoccupied with, because there's such childish thinking, you know, and as you know now, the flat earthers are back. The earth is really flat, and they have all of these reasons why it is so, and how it's a great NASA conspiracy to, nobody's ever really been to the moon, and it's, you know, the sphericity of the other objects in the sky, they are suspect, just the way the sphericity of Earth is an illusion, so they say. Now, when you've got that kind of retrogressive thinking, we need something more advanced and irrefutable, at least to occultists. We need to establish the occult esoteric roots of astronomical reality and of the reality of the energies which we know are changing and affect us. We can detect the changes every month. We can even detect the changes in the moon position. And when different planets move into different signs, we can detect the changes. So we know there are energy changes, but we want to know, you know, how it really works as far up as we can conceive. And we're on the way here to try to do that. Okay, great invocation. And then this evening, we have the glamour, dissipation of glamour group at 5 p.m. GMT. I'm sure we'll be able to find an important glamour that needs some work. They all cluster around mistaken identity. In other words, the human being thinks he or she is what he or she is not. And out of that illusion arise all these distorted desires, which we call glamour.
Okay, Michael, would you change your screen share now for the great invocation?
No, I must be something. Is it just absent-mindedness or the, well, I won't even say. We're good now, I assume.
Yes, we are.
Okay, thanks. So, great invocation. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Okay, everybody, thank you. And this will, Michael, where does this become available? On the Makara, I think, at first. Is that it?
I'd get it put up on Makara first, and it will then be posted on YouTube in the near future.
Yeah, right. 2050, right? Okay. All right. Well, we'll see you all, and maybe later today, maybe. And we'll think about these astronomical things and how they are relating to the electric fire, solar fire, and fire by friction with which we have always to deal in the right way. Bye-bye for now. And Michael, you'll sign us off, right?
Yes, I will.